Today's sponsor is ITP Airsoft Innovative Tactical Productions with an insane upgrade for the Tokyo Marui Saiga-12, turning it into a Groza shotgun. This thing is absolutely ridiculous. First of all, I want to say thank you to them for sending this out to me and allowing me to showcase it for you guys. This entire video is strictly going to be an install because it's honestly one of the longest installs I've ever done, and I can't cut it down any shorter because we don't want to lose any of that content. So I'm going to do an entirely different video where I'm going to field test it, show you all the functioning components, what it's all made of, you name it, all my opinions and everything like that. There will be a link in the description if you're looking to pick one of these up yourself. However, I do need you to keep in mind that there are a few things to do when installing this. I highly recommend utilizing Loctite while you're installing it because a lot of these parts have a lot of screws that you do not want to lose, or you'd have to take things apart in order to access those screws again. Take your time, don't strip anything, don't force anything. It should all install super easy. ITP was really good with their tolerances, so these things went on super smooth as long as you take your time. Also, there's a lot of screws and a lot of parts and things that we're going to take off of the original replica. And when we do that, a lot of those are going to either be repurposed for the same exact purpose they had originally, or they're going to be used for a different purpose. So don't lose anything you take off. Keep in mind where you put everything, where you store everything. Sit down. This took me about an hour and a half to do, obviously while filming at the same time, so it might take you like an hour. It's a long one, it's a doozy, but it's worth it. Let's go.
Now your entire setup might be a little bit different than mine, obviously. For what right now I need to do is remove my ITP handguard, which it does upset me to remove. However, I'm an AK guy, I'm a Bullpup guy, and the Groza kit is something that is absolutely essential in my arsenal, so we're going to go ahead and remove that. Now, the easiest thing for me to do is attack the 4 screws on the side that are pretty Loctited into place, and I want to keep all of these because I don't want to get rid of this handguard by any means. I may actually even at some point pick up another Saiga and throw it on there. I did previously Loctite these all in place, so hopefully they all come out nice and easily. Perfect, and then I believe the upper should just slide right off. Yep, perfect. Now for the lower, just gonna pop these guys off. And then this one, it's very well held on there. And then, of course, this bottom screw in the front. And then this bottom screw in the back. Now the entire handguard should pop off. Lastly, we just need to get to this little piece. Take that off. Now we just got to switch our bit to a star bit. And we have to remove the magwell flare. And then you can actually, just for now, so you don't lose them, reinstall these without the flare. Next, you can go ahead and take down the Saiga. Just do your quick field strip, take the upper off, spring guide rod and spring assembly, and then your bolt. And if you want to just go ahead really quickly, we're going to remove this part. Should unscrew. If it doesn't unscrew nice and easily, you can use a little bit of heat because it is glued into place, and then use a wrench with a cloth to get this guy off. But you're going to remove this piece. All right, so next, you see this little gas block cover? We have to remove this. And just be careful. This guy is spring-loaded, and we have to apply tension downwards to it when we unscrew it. Yours might be a little different looking than mine, just because it's this one's the ITP upgraded one. However, it functions exactly the same as the stock cover. So we can go ahead and take that, toss that aside. Go ahead and take off your thread protector. And then, of course, the little O-ring that I probably throw on there just because it's easier not to over-tighten it, and this applies backwards tension, so I don't have to use Loctite. We have 2 grub screws to attack now. First one is under here. Don't lose that. And then the second one is on the right side of the barrel. And then put that guy aside as well. There are now 2 pins that we have to punch out in order to get this entire block off. This pin is holding in that little nub that held the gas block in place. And there's a spring under it, so just be careful when you go ahead and press that guy out. I'd recommend starting with that one and put a thumb or a finger on top of that little spring-loaded pin. Pull that guy out, put it aside. Remember which direction your pins came out from, and then get that spring out as well. And then just punch off the other one. Now this entire block should slide straight up and off the front. You should be able to unscrew your barrel. These are a ridiculously long amount of threads. And be careful because your 3 barrels are inside of here loose, and they're held together by just an O-ring. So you don't want to misplace those or rip them out of the hop rubbers. So when we remove this, we're going to be super careful. You'll see those O-rings up in the front. And boom. Pop the gas block off. That guy should just wiggle on out. And then we're actually going to take this O-ring off as well. And be careful now because those aren't being held together by anything up in the front. They're going to be a little bit looser. This part's pretty exciting now. We're going to install our first upgraded ITP piece. This guy is going to slide straight over those 3 inner barrels. And then you're just going to, again with those super long threads, thread that shorter barrel into place. And what that does is it allows us to add the gas block on, which is going to be a little bit shorter. And then, of course, our second barrel piece that's going to give us a place to throw a foregrip. Perfect. More than welcome now to throw that O-ring back on the outside of those barrels. Now we're going to take this piece that came in our kit, the little hollow tube, and that's going to work in place of that other tube up top here. And we can go ahead and throw this block on now. Keep an eye on the orientation. I don't know if you could see this little nub on the bottom, and the screw on the top is in the front. Slide it straight on over, just like that. We took out those pins. The smaller of the 2 we're going to throw back in now. And what you have to do is be super careful. You want to make sure that you align this hole with the groove so it has a clear passway through. If it does, then you're in a good place. We're going to take our punch. It should not take like any force at all. You should probably just try and push it through with hand tension first. And if it feels like it's going to move in pretty snug, then you can go ahead and drop that pin all the way down. When we go ahead and install these next 3 pieces, the pin, that rod that locks that little cap in place, and then the spring, what we have to keep in mind is we want the rod to glide past the pin just like this. And the way we're going to do that is by installing the pin first partially. And you can see, after we put it in a little bit, that the correct way to install this guy, being that the hole is a little higher than this hole, is with the arch facing south or downwards. So we're going to install the spring in that hole now, that's up in the front. Then take the pin, put the pin in facing down, and you should see it has like that opening now. See that? So you just have to pressurize it enough so that the opening is visible, and then the pin should be able to freely push itself in place. We may have to give it a little bit of convincing, little tap, but we shouldn't need a lot. And then you should see that pin still has spring tension, and the pin goes all the way through. Those grub screws that we took out before now have to go in. I'm going to first start with the grub screw up in the front of the block. When you do install it, just make sure that block is sitting straight. So before you full tighten it down, make sure we're straight up and down. That looks like it. So we'll go ahead and tighten it all the way. I am putting a little bit of Loctite glue on these parts. I'm going to continue to do that throughout the rest of this process. So if you see any glue on it, that's what I'm doing. And that next screw just goes in on the right side to hold the barrel in place. Just like that. The next ITP part that we'll be replacing is that block in the front that goes up top. So we're just going to reinstall it in the reverse orientation now. I like the way this one looks with that cool like hex pattern and then the numbers on it. Remember, we're going to have to pressurize that little pin down after we get it a certain way. So you're just going to need something to press it in place. This will still stay a little bit loose. It's a little wobbly, but it's kind of like any AK thread adapter. So when you tighten it all the way, the pin doesn't loosen. So you just want to back tighten it a little bit until it locks. And there will be a little bit of play in there. You might be able to stick an O-ring there to tighten that up, but I don't particularly mind that at all. You can't hear it when you're moving around. Let's go ahead and finish off our barrel now. We just have to loosen up all of these screws first. And that inner barrel should slide off completely. You'll have a little bag of screws, and then this guy. What I'm going to do is take this extended barrel, take that barrel, careful not to like move the O-ring around. You want to twist it on while you install it. Make sure that O-ring is still in place, and then go ahead and screw that extension onto the outer barrel. Now let's move into the back of the replica. We're going to have to remove the stock, the grip, and the trigger cover, or the trigger guard. First, we're going to take this pin out. You'll see this pin's going to punch upwards. So let's just grab a pin and punch. Where did I put my punch? And from the bottom, just knock this pin out. It comes out super easy. And this guy just holds your stock in place, which we can save, but we won't need. Now we're going to attack the grip. Yours will be a little different than mine. It should just have a screw port right there. This one, however, I'm going to have to go a little bit deeper, but it's essentially the same thing. Just go ahead and attack the screw that is at the bottom of yours. I'll just use this little extension. Just begin unscrewing. And you can pull the grip off. A screw and a washer will come off, and there's going to be a little nut that's at the base of here that you're just going to go ahead and pry outwards. We're going to attack the 3 screws on the trigger guard, and we might need a slightly larger bit for that. And we'll start unscrewing those. Number 1, number 2 in the front, and then the third one will just be positioned in the back. And then when you lift this up, it should take all 3 screws and the trigger guard off with it. Also, this little cap, keep that, don't lose it. That just stops your selector switch from going all the way downwards. Now grab this bracket from your ITP Airsoft kit and do me a favor. It's extremely important you remember where these screws go. So as you disassemble all of these screws in line, you're going to place them where they came out of in their respective holes. So we're going to start off with these 2 front screws. Give it some time, but go ahead and unscrew that first one. And then I'll show you again, like I said, just to remember where they all go. All you're going to do is take it and line it up with the other one, right in the same hole. We'll go ahead and remove it. And now the same thing goes for this screw, and then the screw that was in the back. This one goes all the way on the end. Leave that hole open for now, and I'd even recommend sliding this guy out of the way so you've got a little bit of room to work. This whole block should now just pop off nice and easy. Put that aside. And now there's 4 screws, one here, and then one here and one here. We're just going to go ahead and loosen them, not all the way, but just enough so they all pull away about like that. Now go ahead, press that trigger detent right up in the front. That's going to allow you to pull your trigger now. Pull the trigger and release the hammer. Now after you release the hammer, you should be able to rotate the safety selector all the way up and out of the way. And it should pop right out when it's in the upwards facing position, and we'll just toss that aside. It's time to remove the entire trigger housing now, and what we have to do is push these 2 pins out from the opposite side. So we're going to attack this one and this one. They come out very easily, so just be careful. And then you should be able to push them out the rest of the way by hand. And then maybe even pull them from the opposite side. Put those somewhere where you won't lose them. And this is going to loosen your entire trigger box, but you have to be careful. Some of my parts might be a slightly different color than yours. That's just because I upgraded them with the upgradable ITP Airsoft Full Auto kit. But you're going to want to hold this guy in, let's see if we can figure it out, this orientation. So the left side of the body facing you, because there's some springs and stuff you don't want to go awry in here, and they're just kind of held in by friction between the trigger box and the body of the Saiga-12. So we're going to go ahead and slowly move this guy outwards, and you'll see some of those parts and such. It should slide out super easy. And you'll see, obviously, we got some springs and whatnot, and these upgraded pieces that are a little bit different from yours, but they're just sitting in there based off of friction. So be super careful when messing around with it. Pull the Saiga-12 body away for a second, because now what we're going to do is try and nakify any of the parts of the hammer housing that may or may not just go flying away. I like to use a pair of tweezers. I always found that it is a little bit easier that way. We're just going to start by removing some parts. We're going to take this piece out first. This is one of the parts from your fire selector. We'll take out this little plastic piece as well. Don't want that to go flying anywhere. Next, we're going to remove this spring. I just like to pinch it and pull it off of the nub that it's on. It just flew. Oh, come on, please be in a place that I could find you. Oh my God, it's right there. That's perfect. Okay. That would have been a long night. Next, be super careful. We got to remove this spring now. Let's not do what we just did. pull that guy out. And then we'll take this little metal piece out as well. Next, there is a small O-ring on the inside here, I believe. Next, what we're going to do is, you see this guy right here? This is a pin. We just have to punch that out from the inside. It's usually easiest to just go ahead and grab something pointy and punch it through, but be careful because the trigger is now under spring tension, so hold on to your trigger parts. Pull this pin out. There's a spring at the bottom here that we don't want to lose. And a small little ring. Now your trigger should pop out, and so should your hammer and the spring that's under it. This piece is inside of your ITP Airsoft kit, and you're going to have to remove it and basically take it all down because we have to reinstall it inside the Saiga. So we're going to start with this screw. It's smaller than the bit I have now. Go ahead and unscrew it. I would recommend keeping these parts separate from all the parts that you first took apart. This entire piece should now just pop right off with a little bit of convincing. Next, there's another screw at the base. This is one of the longer screws. Then this pin and the housing that the pin's in should come out. And then both of these pieces should separate. You'll see this one kind of mimics your hammer. And this one is like your replacement trigger without the trigger, so that you can run the trigger to the front of the replica instead of inside the hammer. This part's kind of difficult. We're going to take the new hammer and the spring from the old hammer, put them together like this. Now you're going to take that new housing, that new trigger housing, and you see how it's got that little like cutout for the spring? You're going to place that spring in this orientation like this, with the bottom of the spring inside of that cutout, and then pressurize it so that both holes line up. Now at the same time, we're going to install this, and be careful, don't lose any of the springs. This is not an easy setup. There's a spring on the opposite side here you don't want to lose. Just be careful of that. We're going to throw it in this orientation with all those bells and whistles and pieces that we just took out, facing like this. And we have to get this arm up inside of this channel. So line it up with the holes. Throw a finger on in just to kind of pressurize the hammer. It might fall out of place once or twice. That's okay. And just like that, everything's in place. Your spring is in place. You got a hole that's completely open there. And that guy is inside the groove. You can see that right here. Now the easiest thing to do here is to just kind of hold everything in place, which isn't easy. We're going to grab this little pin with the groove facing down, and we're going to place it through the opposite side with the bigger hole. It'll only go through one side, and it might take a little bit of convincing to get it in place, but again, keep that groove facing down, and that should just work its way through until it's flush. Now your spring should still be in place. Your hammer will be loose but connected, and that little spring pin should be inside the groove. Now let's start to put all of our pieces back in, right? So we're going to install some of these springs and whatnot. First, the spring that has the larger spaces between it is going to go here. I've always found it to be easiest to pinch it closed. Again, keep a finger on it. Finger on it. And that should be rock solid in place, and you should notice that there's spring tension to it. Next, we grab this piece and the spring that's like super coiled together, and they're going to be installed like this. So you see how it kind of looks like a 2 with that protrusion going inwards, and then that spring is just going to go right up in the channel and against the hammer, or against the body of the unit. We'll grab that little C-clip, put that in with the nub facing the ceiling, and then yours will be a little different than mine. This is the upgraded one from ITP with the protrusion going into the hole. You want it to line up against the wall, just like that. Now be careful, put a finger on here, because we're going to flip it over. What we have to do is, you see that little pin that we were talking about before, that we pushed in for the trigger? We're going to make sure that's all the way in, because we have to get this piece. It's crucial that this goes back in. You remember that ring that we took out? You're going to feed that guy right on into the side. Put a finger on it. Put a finger on this. And we're going to slowly feed everything back into the body of the Saiga-12. It should just drop and fit. It shouldn't take much. Everything should slide into place rather easily. And just to make sure there shouldn't be any teeter-tottering, it should be locked in place. Put a finger on the top. This guy should be totally flush with the base. Should have something notched up inside that little left corner. This should be nice and flush. That mag release should be nice and flush. And then you're good to go. Now take this guy in this orientation with the barrel facing all the way to your left and that new pin. And it needs to be in a position where that hole, that thread hole, is facing upwards or downwards to the bottom of the replica. But in this case, it's facing us. And we're going to install it in this hole. Just before we get it in, you see how that hole is facing upwards? Make sure, and then just press it in place and make sure it comes all the way through the other side. And you should see this little pin pop out the opposite side now. It's time to grab those 2 screws now. We're going to grab the longer one first. We're going to add a little bit of Loctite to it. And then we're going to screw it into the base right here. You shouldn't have to force it in. As long as that pin is facing the correct orientation, it'll go in super smooth. And just be careful not to over tighten it. The Loctite will do the work. Next, keep in mind there's this little flat notch on this pin that came through. So it won't let you install it this direction if for some reason you install the pin incorrectly. So this just kind of allows you to double check it. Put this piece straight on so that it's flush to the side of the Saiga, just like that. See how it's nice and flush? And then we're going to grab that smaller screw and a little Loctite, just enough to keep in place, and we will go ahead and install that as well. And again, just hand tighten it. Nothing too crazy. The Loctite will do the work. Take the fire selector. Flip this guy around. Again, reinstall it facing upwards the same way we had it before. And it should just drop into a hole on the other side. Kind of a pain in the butt. Perfect. Go ahead and push it straight down. The lock position. Push the hammer down into place now. And let's grab that other pin that we pulled out before. And we're going to push it in through the hole on the other side. So just make sure, obviously, you've got space. Your fire selector should slide right over it just fine. Now let's grab that block, the screw that comes with it, and the little nut that we took out of the grip before. We're going to throw that nut back into place. The only spot it'll go in the grip, if I can get it to slide itself inwards. It shouldn't take any force. It should just go into where it's supposed to go. Perfect. Next, we're going to take that block with the flat part facing downwards, or behind us, and it should sit right like this. I'll go ahead and take that screw. I'm going to throw a little Loctite on it. Perfect. And then we're going to drop it in the only place it fits and start screwing it on in just until it's nice and snug. Switch out bits, and you remember the 3 screws that we pulled out of the trigger bar? We're going to pull the front one out. Again with a little bit of Loctite, and that's the wrong bit. Should be able to scoop it off the back end here. We're going to screw it right into that front hole of that block we just put on. And just hand tighten it as well. I'm so excited. It's starting to come together. So let's grab that stock pad now. And I also almost forgot. I think we should do this now. I completely forgot. Fully retighten these back down. Now, what we're going to do is take both these screws out to remove this block so we can get that pin in. So number 1 will come out. Keep those screws nearby. We're going to need them in just a second. Come on. Basically out. Cool. We have to install it in this orientation. And just be careful. Don't close it all the way. Keep it open while we install it. Let's grab our stock pin that we have somewhere. It should just be in here. And it goes from top down with that serrated edge at the top. Shouldn't take it too much force. Should just kind of drop in place. And then you can nudge it the rest of the way. What we need to do is, while keeping it non-folded, or I guess technically folded, but loose, I'm going to grab these 2 screws and the stock pad. I'm going to actually take one of them, throw a little Loctite glue on it, because I don't want that coming apart later. We'll drop the stock on this orientation and just make sure we line up those holes. Screw it into the left one first. Don't fully tighten it down yet until you get the other one on there. And get a little Loctite on this one as well. Screw that one in place. And then evenly starting to tighten them one down at a time until they both get nice and snug. Just be careful not to strip them. Now you should be able to keep this guy out of the way and just carefully, while pressing the button, lock it in place. So that button is super crucial to open and fold the stock. And the reason being is because you have to have the stock open in order to install all of your previously removed parts, such as, like we're going to do now, the bolt, which will just slide in like it regularly would, without that extra weight added to it. The spring and spring guide, we'll go ahead and get those installed as well. Spring and spring guide are a little harder to get in. And we'll lock that guy in place. Perfect. And then, of course, just make sure you install the dust cover into that notch up under the front correctly. And with the stock out of the way, should be able to install it all the way down. Now be careful, don't force it. We have to get this guy over the pin. So press that pin down a little bit and then press this pin in. And if you wiggle it a little bit, again, like I said, don't force it because it's going to put a little pressure on the dust cover. But as long as that dust cover is seated the way that it's supposed to be, it should lock itself in place, and the dust cover is now super firm in place in there. And there you have it. See how snug that thing is? I'll pull over that little magwell flare, and just keep in mind these screws are a little T5 bit. I kind of wish they were all T5 bits. I've always preferred T5 just because they strip so much less frequently. And I'm going to throw a little Loctite glue on these as well, just so that stays in place, because I assume this piece will take a little bit of a beating. This hole is just going to go over this little rivet, just like that. We'll grab some Loctite for our first one. Just a little bit. That was almost too much. And we'll go ahead and drop that in place. Just make sure that thread's in nice and smooth. I'm not going to tighten it down all the way yet, but I will grab this piece. And then we'll go ahead and screw that guy in place as well. Just make sure it goes in nice and smooth. Start to tighten that one down. Start to tighten the other one down, and just make sure it sits over that rivet. 1 and 2. And that should be nice and snug in there. Now, I believe you only need one of these. It comes with 2. So we're going to carefully take the wire that's not connected right now out. This one's already connected inside. And put this aside. Do not, I repeat, do not bend these. We got to be super careful not to bend the wire, but there's a lot of unscrewing we're going to have to do. We got to unscrew all of these screws now completely on both sides. So now when you take this apart, surprise, surprise, don't bend the wire. The upper and lower will come apart. Put that down aside. Bingo. And you'll have the centerpiece as well. So there's 2 screws inside of this lower housing now that are going to need to be removed. These are going to hold in this little piece that's going to allow us to attach our grip. We have to unscrew that, and it's going to take a larger bit than what I'm using. Let's try this one. Yeah, that fits. So go ahead, careful. Kind of have to manhandle these ones, and again, don't bend the wire while you do so. Just kind of keep your hands away from it is probably your best bet. Otherwise, like me, you'll just wind up squeezing the crud out of it. That's one. And then get to the other one. Just kind of keep the wire out of the way. Perfect. And that bottom piece and that screw should pop out. So just be careful not to lose those. So with it in this orientation and that nut again that we have, what we're going to do is toss it into the replica just like that, so that the, like, I guess, beveled edge is facing towards the wire. And we are going to screw in the top screw now. And again, continue to be careful of the wire. I'm going to throw a little bit of Loctite glue on there. That is way more than I wanted. I'm going to try and wipe some of that off really quick. We're going to screw it into the top screw port. Shouldn't take any force. Should screw in nice and snug. Now, keeping our paws away from the wire, we have to now bend this piece outwards. And to do so, we're going to press this button, throw a pin in here, and we're just going to punch it, from what I was told at least. Bingo. Careful of the wire. Be careful of the wire. And that should come out to the side now. And we needed to do that specifically so that we can get access to the screw point that we need to install the rest of the unit onto the grip. So we can actually bring this up a little bit. Doesn't need to be all the way out. I believe we can bring it upwards a tad. Just enough so that we can get that screw in. My hands are sweaty. So let's drop that screw in place and get a little more Loctite. Sorry, this part's a little tedious. Again, there's just so many moving parts. The last thing I want to do is have to take things apart so I can retighten things. I think the Loctite's going to be the best option here. Perfect. Now we're going to install it onto the Saiga. Make sure that wire is sitting inside of that groove on the outside. It's going to go on the Saiga, and that little notch is going to seat into the base of it. You see that notch at the bottom? It should go in like that. Let's, careful, flip it around, make sure the wire is sitting the way we want it to. Looks like it is. Hopefully. There we go, a little convincing. Wire is sitting where we need it to. That is all the way flush. Now let's grab, once again, that longer screw that we took out of the base. And of course, some good old Loctite. And then we're going to screw that down into that hole right there. And hand tighten that up. Cool. So now that we have that floating wire that I keep telling you to be careful about, this is when we're finally going to get rid of it and cover it up. This is going to control your trigger now. See this part right here? That's your trigger. We have to push this over and seat that wire on top. And now that will give you access to your trigger. Don't pull anything, don't do anything ridiculous yet. We still have to install that cover over the wire. You remember this cover that I was talking about, not to lose all the pieces? Remember where all the screws went? That's what we're installing now. So we're going to go ahead and install that directly over the wire. We'll grab all of the bits and whatnot that we need for it. I don't believe that's going to fit. I think this one will do. Go ahead and pour those screws out. Make sure it sits over it nice and clean. And we'll go ahead and install installing all of these pieces. I wouldn't tighten them all down just yet, 100%. I would go just enough that they're almost tight, and then we'll come back through and tighten them all down afterwards. This guy. Those front two. The next front one. And then this little guy from the back that takes the smaller bit. And then I'd go ahead and just do a rough tighten down on all of them. Now that we know it's in place. And afterwards, we'll just double check to make sure that it's not moving around at all and that it's not pinching the wire. Perfect. Just to double check everything's working the way we want it to, I'd throw it into fire mode, charge your handle, and then if you pull your trigger and the hammer drops, it's functioning the way it's supposed to. I'm going to continue to reuse some parts that we took apart before, like our trigger guard. We have to remove screw 1, 2, and 3 in that triangle position. So we'll pop this guy off. Pop this guy off. And then we'll pop this one off. Now we can take our 2 screws out of our trigger. We'll set those aside. And we're going to install it like this. Again, I'm sure you already knew that I was going to do it. We're going to throw the Loctite on. Make sure everything's snug. Go for the front hole first. Then we'll attack the back. And then we'll attack the opposite side of the front. Go ahead and give those a little extra hand tighten down. Just enough to keep everything nice and snug. And you should have a small bag of washers that ITP sent you in the box. We're going to grab these 2. And then those 2 screws that we just took out of the trigger guard. And then the fire selector switch block. And we're going to flip this guy upside down. We're going to place our fire selector switch block right behind the mag release. We want to take both the washers now and place those on top. These will act like the spacers between the as if they were the trigger guard. And then take those screws now with a little bit of blue And then we're going to install those. I really like how we reuse a lot of the parts that we started with. And that'll keep your fire selector switch from just going rogue and falling all the way downwards. We'll grab the other one. Throw it on there. And then screw it on in. Hand tighten it down. And just to save the time, pay attention to the direction that I put these all in. You're going to place this front guard, or that top like heat guard, right on the top. And then we're going to take the entire handle. And you see how these little notches get smaller and smaller? Make sure those are facing forwards. You slide those up on top in the front. And then we're going to reinstall all of these screws that we'd had before. I'm just going to Loctite all of them, so I'm just going to save you the time. Ugh, my hands are so sweaty. Anyways, all the screws are installed. Now let's get the grip on. We're going to take this nonsensely long screw, get a little Loctite blue on it, and what we have to do is install it now with the grip as far forward as we can on that notch and press it all the way down. Something really cool that ITP did was they made it so it's super easy to line up that screw. Now this should be a perfect lineup if I'm not mistaken. Should go straight in. And this is a very large screwdriver, which I totally didn't just have to go look for. We'll just screw that on in. If it starts sinking downwards, then you're in the right place. It's just got a lot of threads, so it'll take a little bit of time. Loctite's especially important for that spot because this is an area that we're going to be handling a lot. And that should be nice and snug on there. So I throw an extended adapter on. We're going to grab these 2 extra screws that ITP gives us and this unit that we took off before. And we're going to slide it on with these holes facing backwards. Should be loose enough to get on there. And we have to line up those holes now so that we can screw in these 2 screws to port 1 and port 2. I'm going to, as per usual, Loctite them. It's super nice that they clamp into somewhere and not just the onto the barrel. It's going to help a lot longevity-wise and keeping these guys stable, especially because this area is where you're going to want to add your foregrip on, I presume. Going to need somewhere to hold on to. And then let's get this guy into our adapter. Oh, that one dropped out. That is kind of a fucky angle. So I got it in. I wound up having to use an Allen key and just do like quarter turns to get it all the way on, but now it's nice and snug and that lower piece ain't going anywhere. Now we're just going to tighten down the upper screws. That is way too big. I'm losing my mind. It's like 2 a.m. here. Oh, I forgot. I dropped that one on the floor. This is definitely one of the longer installs that I've ever done. Okay. So now we're going to start to tighten all these guys down. I'll cross tighten and then I'll cross again. Like that. We'll do left back, right front, and now we'll just go back through and attack them all again. Left side. And then the right side. Holy smokes. Let's get the, would love some sort of a suppressor or something on the end of this, but for now, I'm just going to throw the thread protector that we had on before onto the front. And just like that. Let me get this out of the way first.
And we're back at the table. This thing looks absolutely insane. We are running out of time. Like I said, this is not going to be anything else besides an install video. I'm going to do some extra videos on this so that we can take a look at everything else, go fire it, go absolutely nuts with it. I even would love to get some gameplay. I haven't played in a while, but I would love to get some gameplay with it. Anyways, thank you again, ITP. This thing is absolutely insane. Honestly, one of my favorite companies out there making revolutionarily different upgrade kits and different upgrade products and parts for replicas that I've just never seen before. It just looks so evil. Gotta get some sort of like a suppressor on the end of that or something. Okay, I'll see you on the next adventure. Thanks for hanging out. Thank you, ITP. And as always, I'll see you on the next one.